What did you think of the movie?
Well, we're going to get into that, but first, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. So, hello, Internet. Thanks for joining us for this September Movie Club. We are discussing the movie Run, Lola Run today, which, if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, there will be spoilers. So, if you would rather not have the movie spoiled, then you can feel free to go and watch it on your own time and then come back and watch the replay of us talking about it. Otherwise, just fair warning. If you don't know us, we are the Dragonfly Arts and Creative Collective. We run monthly multimedia clubs. Yesterday night we had our, sorry, I'm drawing a blank, our listening club. With that, you can catch that. I think it's one of the players on Facebook watching from under the media tab. If you join on so you can go ahead and join us here at on Facebook that you need in whether endeavor whether it's a or you just want to connect with us and talk about culture and and you can also find on Saturdays as other fun stuff. We also have the in the description. If you like what we do and you want to support us of this type of thing. Oh, is the audio bad? Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me at all?
So, still kind of choppy. It sounded a teeny bit better.
Yeah, I would say it's very choppy. It's hard to understand.
Maybe could it be a disconnect, reconnect type of fix?
There we go. I had the wrong mic connected.
That's much better, yeah. Happens.
Oh my goodness. So I just said all of that and none of it, hardly any of it probably made any sense.
Sorry, tried to tell you in the chat. Sorry.
You guys could have spoke up and said something.
Next time we'll just speak up.
Anyway, my apologies, Internet. Yeah, find us on YouTube, watch the replays in the Facebook group, which you can find here. Whoops, there. That's the one. Patreon, link in the description. If you want to support us, please give us money. We do these every month. This month we're talking about Run, Lola Run. And that's all I'll say since I don't want to eat up any more time on this. So first off, I wanted to kind of open with kind of general thoughts and impressions. Had you guys seen this movie before, and what did you think?
Yeah, I saw it once before, a while ago. Not when it came out, but probably like 2015 or something. I rented it, but I didn't remember any of it. Like I didn't even remember the 3 timelines or anything. So yeah, this was my first time rewatching it since then.
What about you, Sam?
I had not seen it. I might have vaguely heard of the title. it sort of sounds like it could be several different movies, but yeah, I'd only maybe heard of the title. I'd never. I was familiar with the actress though, Rika Potent. She was in.
Yeah, she's been in quite a few things.
I remembered her from Blow. I don't know what I haven't seen her in any other movies though.
Yeah, she was in some of the Bourne movies, the like Jason Bourne movies.
Oh yes.
I can't remember exactly which ones, but let's see.
I think I may remember her from Bourne now that you mentioned that.
What were your general impressions of the movie, Sam?
I enjoyed it actually. I thought it was interesting. I guess this is I don't know if we're including spoilers in here, but just in case we're not, the ending. I think the ending line I thought was kind of pretty great, just very anticlimactic. What's in the bag?
Yeah.
Oh, guess what?
Oh, I did preface
day.
this. I did preface this whole thing with there will be spoilers. So you guys or the wider internet may have not have heard that, but there are this discussion will get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, maybe go and watch it on your own time and then come back and watch the replay of us. If you don't want it to be spoiled, that is. All right, so then let's talk a little bit about its release. So it came out in Germany in 1998, I believe. It says here, yes, 98. It's pretty short. It's under an hour and a half.
Yeah.
The budget was shoestring, 1.7 million. And it was really well received when it first came out. Like we said already, it stars Franka Potente, Moritz Bleibtreu. I do speak German. I'm just not trying to right now. And it was directed by Tom Tykwer. It was also written by him, and the music was collaborated with him as a credited writer as well. So I find it interesting that, and what I have on the slide here is the original German release poster, which I thought was interesting. But it's a bit of an indie cult classic, but also I don't know if its legacy holds up. Like I said, it was very critically and audience well acclaimed when it came out. It won several awards at like indie film festivals and things like that. But and we'll get into this a little bit later. I saved a few of the more recent comments, and it seems like the newer generations don't really get it. Maybe it's overhyped. Maybe it just doesn't hold up. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think watching it now, the movie is enjoyable overall, but it is very, very late 90s, like the style of it and the music and like it almost everything about it just to me just fits right into like the time period from 1997 to like 2002 or something. And so yeah, it is kind of in a way stuck in that time period, but I think it is well executed and it is enjoyable. Those are my general impressions of it.
I would agree with the 1998. It seems very 1998, early 2000s aspect for sure. Although to me, it might have been part of its charm somewhat. Or I think I like the animated sequence of her running down the stairwell with the dog and the neighbor. And you don't see that done very much in films. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe you do. Although I haven't seen that kind of thing done in a film recently.
Yeah, the genre is kind of like experimental thriller, and you can definitely get that feeling from it right away from even the title sequence. But yeah, I mean, I I somewhat agree. This film has a very nostalgic place in my heart. So to me, it's still great. I loved watching it again. This is the first time I've watched it since like when I was in high school when it first came out. And I loved it just as much, but that could be colored by my my predisposition towards liking it already. Who knows?
I don't know how widely released or known this was in the United States at the time. I guess widely enough among film, film goers or like more artsy intellectual type film goers, maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe indie is a better word.
I was in film school, and I was so like and even before that, because this movie actually came out when I was in middle school. I didn't see it until I was in high school, but I was very interested in like indie film and things like that. So even before I got into college, I was aware of it. Man, this soundtrack though, I played it on repeat for probably years.
I was too young I'm not that much younger than you, but I was maybe too young, at least in, mental maturity wise or film, in terms of my knowledge about film to have even known about it. It wasn't about age. It was more about like being, I think, exposure.
Yeah. Well, and I happen to be in the kind of circles that are aware of like experimental German films.
Yeah.
So, let me see. I'm trying to see. Go ahead, Derek.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think, yeah, this movie seems like a huge success when you consider its budget and that it's a German film with subtitles and that it's like experimental in some ways. It does like it's not quite, it didn't quite make 20 times its budget, but it's something like 1 point or like 15 times its budget, which is a pretty huge success.
Well, and to
Yeah.
put that into context, just according to Wikipedia, it was the highest grossing German film released in 1998. So it made most of that, well, a good portion, close, a little more than half of its total revenue during release, which was 13.8 million. It only grossed 7.3 million in the United States and Canada. So it must have had a much more limited showing, I would guess, in North America. But it was nominated for BAFTA awards, Sundance. Oh, it won the audience award at Sundance, Seattle International Film Festival, Best Film. Yeah, so it was highly acclaimed upon release and did very well considering what it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like the 90s were a pretty good time for independent films and foreign films as well. It just seemed like a good decade for that. And I think especially like Quentin Tarantino was making Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction earlier than this movie. I think he probably had an influence on this movie. Actually, I just read that in Inglourious Bastards, Quentin Tarantino used Tom Tykwer to translate into German, like all of the German dialogue.
Oh.
Tom Tykwer translated it all for Tarantino.
Oh, that's an interesting little bit of trivia that I didn't know. I love both of them. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're both great.
It was filmed in and around Berlin, which when I went to Berlin, I like immediately recognized those above ground rails and just everything. I was like, oh my gosh, this movie. So that was fun.
I recognize that too.
And I was trying to find the stat on how much here. Let's see if we can find it. How much did Franco Potente run? in the filming of this movie.
I was
Yeah,
wondering that too. Did she
yeah, me
do
too.
well? Was it a stunt person? Was it?
Nope, it was all her.
I mean,
She ran
well,
the whole time. Oops, my spelling
I suppose
is
they
off.
could have. In theory, they could have done it in a couple of shots, but well, maybe not.
No, I did hear a interview with her later on where she talked about how much she had to run for this movie. Let's see, can we find any info about that? In Doc Martens, no less. Ugh. Hope she had insoles for those.
They're supposed to be orthopedic, but not running shoes, I guess.
No. I don't know. I can't find it. I did when I listened to an interview with her, she was talking about she wasn't aware when she signed up to star in it how much running was going to be involved. Which, I mean, you read the script, so.
She must have gotten into aerobic shape then.
Well, she was already in really great shape.
Oh yeah,
as you
yeah,
can
for sure.
see in the movie.
Yeah, yeah, she doesn't really seem out of breath in the movie.
Yeah.
I can't remember her looking out of breath or anything. She seems to have a good pace about her. I mean,
I
I'm
thought that
no
was
running
impressive.
expert, but yeah, you know.
I think definitely they probably filmed many of the indoor scenes separately. So a lot of that was probably her putting on, acting that she was out of breath, but I'm sure, I'm sure it was exhausting regardless.
Mm-hmm.
I can't find any info on just how many kilometers, I guess, since we're talking Germany, she ran. Anyway, well, let's talk a little bit about sort of the premise. What did you guys think this movie was saying?
Mm-hmm.
Alternate universes.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's a bit hard to put into words. It seems like Lola kind of has superpowers, but they're not explained or anything like that. For some reason, she's just able to repeat timelines or get information from other timelines. Like there's a moment in the first timeline where she has the safety on the gun, but then in the second timeline, and the guy, her boyfriend, has to tell her to take the safety off. But in the second timeline, she already knows that information, so she takes the safety off herself. So I guess, I don't know, like describing that kind of thing might be getting bogged down in details. As for like an overall picture, it is saying something about like the butterfly effect and how small interactions can change people's lives basically. I mean, this is clearest when she like bumps into people on the street and there are those flashes of their lives afterward. There's like a very quick, like almost like a slideshow of moments from that person's life from then on, and they all wildly diverge in crazy ways, and they're all different depending on which timeline the movie is in. So it's kind of about the butterfly effect, and for some reason Lola seems to be the center of the butterfly effect and seems to have some kind of influence over it, especially when she screams. Apart from that kind of general information, it is a bit hard to put into words, but it it does seem to be kind of generally about butterfly effect and fate and like yeah, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
but that's what I take from
Yeah.
it.
Well, the quote at the beginning, at the end of the titles, or before the titles, actually, the very opening of the film, kind of sets up that premise that it's about choices and how our decisions affect everything, and the significance of chaos in life. I'm just going to read the quote really quick. At the end of our exploring, we shall not cease from exploration. And at the end of all our exploring the end of all of our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time, by T.S. Eliot. And then there's a secondary kind of minor quote underneath that appears before we get into the actual titles. After the game is before the game, by Sepp Herberger. Which is kind of the whole premise of the movie. But yeah, I was reading up a little bit on it, and most people see it as sort of a theme on determinism and the role of chance in how our destinies play out, which is very prevalent throughout the movie. Like in the first kind of cycle, when she calls out for Manny to stop him from robbing the bola, he doesn't hear her. He just happens not to hear her, and he goes in and holds up the place. Whereas in the second one, he does. So it's like you never know what could happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's in a way. Oops, sorry, something fell off my counter, but it does seem a bit messy in a way. Like it's a very ambitious theme, and the movie is very short, and so there are only 3 timelines. And yeah, I don't know where I'm going with it exactly, but it does. It's a very ambitious theme for such a short movie, I think, and it does kind of like leave a lot. I don't know. It's yeah, it's hard to put into words exactly what I'm thinking about it, but I will say when I was watching it this time, like when I saw the quotes at the beginning, and there's kind of a very short prologue where the security guard is like explaining things and talking about a soccer game, and then he throws a soccer ball up in the air, and it's like early CGI, and then all the people line up and spell the word Lola Rent or whatever it is in German.
Lola Run.
Yeah, it does kind of like to me a lot of like the quotes at the beginning and those sorts of tricks are a bit like a film student thing would do, but they're very well executed. And there are like a lot of the editing tricks also throughout the movie also strike me a bit like a film student trying out different techniques and like just kind of throwing everything into the movie and seeing what works. And it is a bit messy. I'm not entirely sure if like all of the themes come together. I mean, they sort of do. Like at the end, I don't know. It's hard to put into words, but it does seem like a bit of a mess when you start to look at what's actually going on in the movie.
Well, it is a experimental indie film, so the feeling of student film, I mean, it's one note removed from that, right? So it kind of makes sense. Aside from the higher cinematic quality than you get in most student films, but yeah, I've always seen this movie as sort of a very long music video, and kind of Tom Tykwer's self gratification in that, as it were.
Yeah. That's I didn't think of the phrase. Yeah, that's a very good way to put it, that it is like a music video, and the beat of the music is always going and always driving forward. I also thought of the movie Crank while watching it. I can't remember Crank in any detail, but I know it's got this simple premise where this guy has to like keep doing action scenes basically, and or else he'll die. And it's kind of like this movie also has a very simple premise, like at the center of it, where Lola just has to deliver some money to this guy or he'll get killed in 20 minutes. And so it's always driving forward. And yeah, a music video is a good way to put it, I think.
Yeah, well, and it's not and I think that's kind of what the movie is supposed to be. It is his first feature length, theatrical release. So I feel like that he just wanted to make what he wanted to make. And it definitely pulls on different themes about like choice and destiny and things like that, but I see it more of just having a good time, which we'll talk about the more recent reviews of the movie in a second. But like I mentioned earlier, it was really well received when it first came out. I think it's very much a product of its time, and it couldn't be made this way today, because audiences, I feel, they want more sophistication from their films now, even from like experimental indie films. But we'll get into that in a minute. What do you think, Sam?
It would be interesting to see what reactions would be if this were to be reviewed. Like, let's say it was shown at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. They occasionally show movies like The Fifth Element, and they cycle through old classics. I wonder if people were to watch it there, for example, today, what would the reaction be? I don't know.
Well, I mean, people who go see movies at Hollywood Forever are big fans of the movies. That's why they go. So
True.
I feel like that would be a biased source. But
I don't know what
I would totally do that. That would be a really good time. I've only ever seen 2 movies at Hollywood Forever. Because usually they're not really movies that I would want to go to that for, but
it's about the nighttime picnicking experience, I think.
Yeah, but I want to enjoy the movie too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw Alien.
They're not new movies.
Yeah, no, not new movies. I saw Alien and I saw Boogie Nights, and both were really fun. I would go see this there. Yeah, his second film, The Princess and the Warrior, was much deeper than this one, I feel, anyway. Have you guys seen that one? I know we're not talking about it, but
I'm not sure what other movies this director's done.
He's collaborated on a lot of things. He's known for this one most prominently, but he also directed and wrote Perfume, which I have been meaning to watch. I haven't, though. The Princess and the Warrior, a movie called Heaven that I've never seen. He's got a couple of earlier films that I've never heard of. But he's sorry, I was just gonna I was just gonna add that he's known pretty well in like American circles as a collaborator on the Matrix trilogy and Cloud Atlas and Sense8. He's like really in tight with the Wachowskis.
I thought this reminded me of the Matrix for some reason, or the music somewhat.
Yeah, this was slightly before the Matrix, but yeah, I could see like the influence on the Matrix. But yeah, I was gonna say Cloud Atlas is, I think, the only other anything of his that I've seen. Even though that movie had 3 directors, it had the Wachowskis plus Tom Tykwer. I still don't know how to pronounce his name, but
Well, in if you're trying to go for the correct German, it's Tykwer.
Tykwer. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Oh.
even in Cloud Atlas, I can't remember which parts of it he directed and which ones were the Wachowskis, but that's also a very experimental movie in its own way, even though it had a higher budget and has much more special effects. But yeah, and I think I did watch the first season of Sense8, and I liked it a lot. I don't know how many episodes he directed exactly. Oh, I also saw on IMDb he had a somewhat new series called Babylon Berlin that
Hmm.
I
Oh, I've
think is
heard of
on
that one.
Netflix.
I've heard it's really good.
Yeah, I think it said 40 episodes. I don't know if he directed all of them, but I think he's credited as the creator. So I think that's what he's been doing recently.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah, he's very famous in Germany. He's one of the more famous German directors.
Hmm.
So, so let's talk a little bit about the film's legacy. So, as I said, it was very well received at the time. If you look at older reviews, especially from critics, you get overwhelmingly positive feedback. It has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. It has like a 7.8 on IMDb, which is pretty high for IMDb. But I found it kind of funny when you Google the movie, Google reviews pop up, and newer audiences don't like it that much.
What are their criticisms against it? I haven't read those reviews. It's an
So I
impressive tomato
actually,
meter, though.
yeah, right. So
That's not easy.
I saved some because I thought they were so funny. I think a lot of the younger generation just don't get it overall. This one says it had the potential to be an exhilarating cinematic experience, but it falls short of expectations because it's repetitive and monotonous.
It is kind of
I mean-
mechanical in its repetitiveness. I found myself like memorizing what was it, I don't know if it's supposed to be a roommate or no, her mother, I guess. Yeah, her mother.
Oh yeah, that line stands out in
shampoo.
my memory all the time. Yeah.
I found myself
Lola-
saying
Lo-
it the third time.
Lola, gehst du einkaufen? Ich brauche Shampoo. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just lives in here forever. That and die Tasche, die Tasche, die Tasche, die Tasche.
I was reading along the English subtitle version of it. Yeah, like, oh, the shampoo thing again. For the third time.
While undeniably energetic, this film falls short of having any meaningful impact. I mean, fair, but does every film have to have a meaningful impact, or can it just be a fun movie? Is what I would say. Two-dimensional characters who are given no real reason to care about, unrealistic outcomes. Okay. Superficial music video sensibility. So he's on the same page, except we disagree. This one's really funny. This movie sucks. All she does is run and run and run some more, and then she runs. Like, yeah, it's in the title. But yeah, so if you are a fan of experimental cinema, or you like, 90s thrillers, or you're a fan of this movie, I would say go and read the Google reviews of it because they made me laugh.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I didn't realize that I mean, I knew when it came out, it had a very high critical reception. I didn't realize that newer people, or at least newer reviews, had somewhat gone downhill or whatever. That is interesting. I can see their points. Yeah, I'm somewhere in between, I guess. Like I definitely enjoy the movie, and I do agree that that's all the movie has to be, is enjoyable. I do see their points though about like a lack of depth, I guess. It kind of goes back to what I was saying, that it is a bit messy and maybe the themes don't all come together or add up to a big impact. But yeah, so
They don't really go
yeah.
into the backstory
Yeah,
of
which
why we should
I would
care.
argue for a movie like this that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Like the movie sets itself up as we're only invested in these 20 minutes of these people's lives. Like that's all we need to know. That's all we should care about. And I think that the movie, for with that context, does do a pretty good job of making you care about the characters,
Yeah, I
even though
agree.
you know practically nothing about them.
Yeah, on the surface there, that the boyfriend seems like a thug, or they're obviously
He's a drug runner.
drug runner, yeah, or whatever word you want to use. Yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, any more detail might have been distracting in a way from
Yeah.
I don't know, the power of the contrast between the three timelines.
Right. Yeah, I think the German word is he's a bagman because he delivers the bags.
Bagman.
Mm-hmm.
What was the word for bag again? They kept repeating it.
Tasha.
Die Tasche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys notice in the first and second cycles when she passes by the homeless guy without even realizing it?
Yeah,
No, I didn't.
Yeah, she doesn't know what he looks like. Could have been
Right.
anyone, but of course he knows what he looks like, the boyfriend.
Yeah, which is why in the last cycle it lines up for him to actually see him walk by or ride actually on the bike so that he can recognize him. Yeah, I've always kind of being the film student that I was, read into the morality of this movie more than is probably intended, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I guess I would have to ask Tom what he meant. But it seems like the first two cycles end in tragedy because they both make like morally bad decisions. Like, he robs the store and then she robs the bank. And then the other one always pays for their mistake,
And they each
so
die once.
yeah. And then in the last cycle, nobody robs anything. So I always thought that was interesting, where like the good ending is the one where they're both finding their own ways of solving the problem and not stepping outside of their moral compass.
Yeah. I also, when watching it this time, I thought of the movie Groundhog Day because it has something similar going on where Bill Murray has to basically be morally perfect for a day for him to get out of that day. And I don't know if, in this movie, if Lola is conscious of herself being trapped in these timelines or anything. It's hard to say what she knows, like if she's aware of these other. I mean, I guess she is, but it's kind of wishy-washy. But
so again, I've critiqued this movie quite a lot more than is probably necessary. Do you want to hear my thoughts on that?
Yeah.
I don't think these are consecutive timelines. I think that it's just about possibilities and making different choices. So it's not necessarily that she is able, or even Manny, because in the second cycle, he's the one who dies and he says, wait, I'm not ready, or whatever he says. And then it restarts again. I think it's about like seeing the different possibilities depending on people's choices. And the fact that she can recall knowledge from her other kind of experiences through this instance is because of like universal consciousness, because another version of herself already did that. Now she can as well. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did. And in between the timeline resets, there are those scenes that are all red where Manny and Lola are lying in bed and talking. it occurred to me that one possible interpretation is that they're both just imagining possibilities while lying in bed, and then when the timeline resets, they just are imagining something different happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, to be honest, I kind of zoned out during the red bed scenes because I wasn't really paying attention to what they were talking about. So I don't know if
Yeah,
that really
those
aligns.
no, I get where you're coming from, and those scenes definitely kind of bring down the vibe of the movie. So I understand that, because the rest of the film is so fast paced and just lots of stuff happening all the time, and there's no breaks really. Those scenes really stand out, possibly in a negative way. But I really enjoy those scenes because they give you further context on the characters and their thought processes. And what I found interesting about them, both back then and watching the movie again, is that you kind of see their own self perception of themselves in those scenes. It's very subtle. But like in the first one, because it's Lola who died and Lola who said, "Stop, let's go back." She is kind of like the she's kind of meek, she's kind of coy, she's not really, and he's kind of aloof and kind of cold, and so that's how she sees herself, that's how she sees him. And then in the second red scene, there not only is that reversed thematically, but their positions are reversed. Like in the first scene, Manny has her laying on his arm, and in the second one, she has him laying on her arm. And he's the meek one, and he's the one who's worried about how she feels about him, and she's the one who's kind of cold and aloof. So, I find them interesting in that regard.
Yeah, I didn't notice the changing in position.
Me neither.
That is very interesting though, and I do agree that having a change of pace, like having quiet moments, is definitely like a good idea. For some reason, I just didn't pay attention to the dialogue, but that's kind of on me. Like at least in those scenes, I didn't pay attention. But um, yeah, again, it's the movie has a lot of very interesting things going on. And yeah, I do overall like enjoy it, I guess.
Yeah, and that wasn't meant to be any kind of like I'm not faulting you for it's just like I said, I have overanalyzed this film. So
yeah, I will also say that this movie, like even though I sort of called it a film student movie earlier, I didn't entirely mean it in a negative way. I think if you watch like the individual shots, they're very well made. Like a lot of the stuff, I really liked that scene where it's near the beginning where Lola first hears the phone call from Manny telling her that she needs to get him the money. And then there's kind of almost this, I wouldn't say bullet time effect exactly, but the camera is spinning around her and she's going through like a mental list of who she can get money from. And there are like flashes of the people's faces. I really liked that because it actually felt like how it feels kind of in real life when you're under pressure and trying to think of something. And it was also kind of funny that when she thinks of Papa, it's the last one that she thinks of, and his face stays up for longer, and his face like shakes his head no when she thinks of him, kind of foreshadowing that he's not gonna give her the money. Yeah, it was just kind of funny. But
that interaction is not going to go well in any regard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do find it funny that the thing that saves them is Hermione not crashing into in high school, we were all very not politically correct. We called them the gay mafia. The three guys in the car who get out. But the thing that kind of saves the day in the end is Hermione not crashing into them, because then he's able to meet with her father, and then she doesn't get to meet with him, and then everything else lines up. So
yeah, that was kind of funny, like in the early timelines, how like the car crashes and then these three muscle men get out and kind of stare at the driver. It was kind of like, yeah, I don't. One thing I also liked is how it looks like the scenes that involve Lola and Manny are shot on film, and the other scenes are shot digitally in kind of
Yep.
a low quality.
They're on video, actually.
Yeah, video.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting stylistic choice. And the film scenes have very good cinematography. Like they're always interesting to look at, and technically the movie is very good. Like it's extremely well executed, I would say.
Yeah, I was going to point that out because it's definitely kind of you're meant to be pulled away from everything that is the two main characters is shot on film and done very pretty, very cinematically. The cinematography on this movie it's very 90s, but it's also very good. And then you have the scenes that are outside of the two main characters that are shot on video on like kind of like a zoomed in shaky cam from like across the room. So it's like you're meant to be like an observer to that more than experiencing what we're experiencing with Lola and Manny. It's kind of like giving you outside knowledge that you're not supposed to have, is the feeling that I have with it.
Yeah, it does like focus the point of view on Lola and Manny, and having like all of the peripheral characters like shot in kind of low quality sort of calls attention to that in an interesting way. So yeah, I definitely liked that aspect of it.
Yeah, I did think it was funny. Not funny, haha, but like in any scenario, Hermione is going to crash into those three guys. It's just a matter of if they beat him up for it or not, I guess.
Yeah.
Did you guys connect that at the end that Myra was the one in the ambulance the whole time?
Yeah, I did. To me, I don't know, this isn't the fault of the movie per se, but to me, like the face of the security guard and the face of the driver and maybe a few other faces were very similar, so it became a bit difficult to tell apart sometimes. So I was thinking in the ambulance, and I think in the ambulance, the guy is also like laid back and the camera is pointed up, so his face is a bit hard to see in a way. So I almost
It is
thought
kind
that
of a weird angle, yeah.
But it did frame it like she should be familiar. We should be familiar with him. And I'm like, wait a minute. How about? Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah, I do give you that their faces do look kind of similar, especially in that shot with the way that he's angled and you can't really see his face super clearly, but you can tell by the shirt that he's wearing. It's not a security guard uniform.
Yeah, that's true.
And given the context that we just saw him get into a car crash, it kind of makes sense. But yeah, it's kind of hinting that he was the one in the ambulance in the other two scenarios as well. And that crashing into those three gangster guys ended him up there. Well, we are coming up on 8 o'clock. So is there anything that we haven't discussed that you guys would like to bring to the table?
Yeah, not necessarily, I don't think.
I could see how it's easy to critique this movie.
Well, I think that
Or
it suffers
discuss one.
from a specific like point in time that it exists. And for me, being a film student in the early 2000s, like rewind back to any old classic, especially indie, like which didn't really exist, 30 years before that, but at least not to the extent that it did when I was studying film. But I wasn't interested in that stuff. Like I didn't like black and white movies. I didn't really I've never seen Gone with the Wind. I've just never had a desire to. Like so it makes sense to me that 50, not 50, 30 years later, kids these days wouldn't be into it. You know what I mean? It very much is a product of its time.
Mhm.
Right. Well, there's other issues with Gone with the Wind that, yeah, that's a whole other topic of discussion.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
I've
But
never seen it,
all
and
that aside,
now I really don't. Yeah. But like those old classics and stuff, I'm not a huge fan. I every once in a while, like I love Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, but black and whites are hard for me, man. Like unless it's like a Young Frankenstein situation where it's black and white because it's satire rather than that's what it is.
I love that movie too, Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Gene Wilder, R.I.P.
Yeah. One of the greats.
I know.
Well, okay, so I'm trying to remember. Rebecca has this specific rating system that she always talks about. I don't remember how it goes. But so on the technical, I don't remember what the other categories are, honestly. Let's just give it an overall out of 10. What do you give this movie?
At least an 8.5, probably. 8.5 at least. I don't know. Maybe
Okay.
something like
Yeah, I would give it a 7, I think. Yeah, I may have seemed kind of critical of it, but I do enjoy it overall.
Yeah, I'd probably give it an 8. Just because it's so nostalgic for me and I still love it so much. But there are better movies that I also like. So, one of which being, sorry.
So according to this group, as on an average, it's a solid 8.
Yeah. Hey, not too bad. That's on par with the critics. Actually, the critics gave it higher. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, one of the better movies that I was talking about would actually be his second one that you should all go watch, which is The Princess and the Warrior. I think it's rather poignant, and I think it's really beautifully executed. It's kind of like a drama. I don't know what you would call it. It's not a thriller, but it has an undercurrent of like tension the whole time.
Yeah, it was definitely it kept you on your toes.
The Princess and the Warrior?
Sorry, never mind.
Yeah, different movie. But yeah, definitely go watch that one. It's also really good. And you kind of see the growth in Tykwer's method from where he started with this movie and where he's going with the next one.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not even sure if I've heard of that movie before, but I'll definitely like check it out now.
Me too.
Awesome. Well, Do you guys have anything else to add?
The only other thing I was thinking about when watching this is that this must have had an influence on Requiem for a Dream. I don't know if you've seen that movie,
I
but
have.
I went to film school.
oh yeah, of course. Yeah, it's I think that's a great movie, and it also uses a lot of the same techniques. Yeah, I've always really liked that movie. I've seen it many, many, many times because I used to like kind of be addicted to it in a way, like all of the fast cutting and the way the music works in it. So in a way, like if maybe if I had seen Lola at the time that I was watching Requiem for a Dream over and over again, I might like have the same feeling of nostalgia or like the same connection to Lola.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was just the other movie I was thinking about. And then I think Requiem for a Dream came out in 2000, so it may have been influenced by this one.
Was that not also late 90s? I thought it was late 90s.
It might have been 1999.
Yeah, close to
I'm-
the same time.
Yeah. Let's.
That movie is so dark.
Yeah, Requiem is a dark one. This one ends happily, unlike Requiem.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
The third one and third timeline ends happily, at least.
Yeah.
I guess the question is that really I guess you can interpret this movie in many ways. Is that actually the reality, or was it all a dream sort of thing?
Well, I am a believer in like string theory multiverse, so I think they all exist equally.
Yep.
Well, guys, awesome. Thank you for joining me. Because my little spiel at the beginning didn't really get through, we have a Patreon. Link is in the description. If you'd like to support what we do and you want to see more of it, please give us money. We also do this every month. So we will be back at the end of next month to talk about some new selections. You can check out our Facebook group. I'll put the link up again to see what they will be. We announce them on the first of the month. So get in the Facebook group and we shall do this again. And if you're interested in participating, it's open to all Dragonfly members. So all you have to do is join the group and participate in our activities and let us know that you would like to join in on a panel discussion. What else? I don't know. I'm tired. My brain is fried. But yes, thank you for watching. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Please feel free to comment. Even though we are not live anymore as you are watching this, we do respond to comments and we like when you guys join in on the conversation and tell us your thoughts. Let us know. Have you seen this movie? Did you like it? Would you watch it again? Etc. etc. So comment either here on the stream or on the announcement thread on the Facebook group, which you can find in the guides tab. And with all that being said, I think that's it from us. So thank you for joining us. We are Dragonfly Arts and Creatives Collective, and this is our multimedia club. So we'll see you guys on the next one.
Yeah.
Bye.
See ya.